My interest in this topic was sparked by a request by the folks at the House Intelligence Committee staff to give them a brief on what to make of the growth in the Chinese nuclear capabilities, nuclear weapons capabilities. And I had been working on a study, which later we'll talk about that a little, that got picked up by the Pentagon and helped them readjust their estimates from rather low numbers to much higher numbers the Chinese are likely to get. And I gave them a brief about 2 years ago now, a little more. And this sort of is based on that. The good news is, since then, other people have written, and so it won't be about my memo. It'll be about what people think, which I think is more interesting, and how we might think about things given our challenge, and we are challenged at this point. So there's the title. Everyone likes to deter, but it should be noted you probably can't deter wars you can't win. And so deter means a bit more than just some kind of academic exercise where you don't do anything. Let's go to the first slide. Well, first, what questions are we going to try to answer? Well, three. How has our perception of future nuclear threats or wars changed? What have experts proposed to do in response to these changes? And, are there some alternatives to what is the conventional and semi-official views on this that we need to consider or should think about? So I always say you got to have the gentleman's C brief, which is let's answer them very briefly. And then, if all else fails with regard to being able to sit through the rest of this, you sort of know what the answers are going to be anyway. I think the what's changed is we've monitored as a government missile and plutonium activities in China, and they have forced us to increase our projections of China. Now, there are a lot of things going on in Russia and North Korea as well. Those, however, are lesser included ramp ups. The ramp up that's driving us crazy the most, I think, is China, and that's what's changed. And it's changed again because we start seeing things, and after a while, we had to start saying things differently and change our projections. The answers as to, well, what should we do? You get, I guess, popular answers, and we'll also examine, finally, luckily, some semi-official ones. There's a study that the Lawrence Livermore lab put together and released in March. And I think it's helpful because you don't have to put up straw men. You can just talk about what they think. But if you look at the popular literature, there are some additional thoughts. And the four answers is roughly of both the popular view and the Lawrence Livermore or semi-official view is, well, if China or Russia build X, we have to build 2X, or 3X, or we just quantitative race. We got to man up and build more. The second one is a little more academic, but it has been seriously briefed by people with clearances who are charged to do studies, and that is, you don't need to get any more weapons, but you do want to change your target list. And what you do is you aim at cities. This is a very popular old French idea, and that is you just threaten to murder a lot of innocent people in cities, and that ought to get everyone frightened enough to be deterred, and then so you don't need to build any more. Then there's something a little sophisticated, and of course, it comes from the Rand Corporation, which is a kind of sophisticated place, and that is, don't build nuclear systems, build advanced conventional strike systems instead. and you could threaten what you need to without having to, fuel at least a nuclear competition. It'll be a missile competition, but it won't be nuclear. And then I think the traditional and semi-official view is steady as she goes. Let's hedge. Let's load up, spare warheads that we have stored away, possibly on the Minuteman. Let's build a nuclear mobilization base so that we can produce lots of pits and materials if we need it, and missiles. And, let's also understand that because of the numbers that we're going to be facing between Russia and China, our ICBMs are going to be much more vulnerable to being knocked out in a first strike. So maybe we need to make them mobile, and we need to make our command, control, communication, and intelligence systems more survivable. They suggest relying less on space, which I think we'll come back to. You can tell by the tone of my voice, I'm a little skeptical about how far you can go on that, but you can go further than we've done, and so there's something to it. All right, that then leads to sort of, well, what should we be doing, or what should we be considering, or is there anything else that we ought to be thinking about? One thing that was raised by the Livermore study, but I don't think they were as conflicted as I think they might want to be, is we have a strategy that kind of relies on firing pretty quickly if we're fired upon, maybe even launch on warning, or launch under attack. And the idea is to limit the amount of further harm that the Chinese can do by firing our missiles at whatever they have left to harm us with. And the phrase damage limitation is the term of art. I don't know if emphasizing that strategy does anything but increase demand for higher numbers. And as I'll explain in this brief, I don't know if we're cut out for higher numbers very quickly or very cheaply, and that may not be the most leveraged way to compete. Making our nuclear weapons mobile, maybe even basing them, and this is a little cockamamie, but it has been suggested in the past, on civilian platforms and hardening them, all of that, so that they're able to survive perhaps and ride out a first strike would be useful. And I think actually that's one thing that I think the Livermore study is it's not fully throated about that, but I think they say that roughly. I think they could add maybe a page with some graphics, but they make passing argument towards this. And so in that sense, there's quite a lot of agreement, I suspect. And that has major implications. And then this is the controversial suggestion that I and others have made, and that is maybe we need to focus on new generation warfare strategies. These promise to disable without threatening to physically obliterate industrial, demographic, and military concentrations of capital. That's code for maybe the Airworth theories of the 1920s have had their day, that after a century, we're moving away from trying to threaten to obliterate the large concentrations of value, whether it's military or civilian. That's maybe not the way wars will be fought or won primarily. If that's so, you may want to focus your strategic investments more on command and control, communication, and I think that means military space.